Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Novelists Unwind. I'm Johnnie Alexander, and so glad to have as my guest today, Jill Eileen Smith, who has made a wonderful reputation writing biblical fiction, specifically women in the Old Testament. So we're going to be talking today about her writing career and also about her latest book, Star of Persia, about Queen Esther. So Jill, just kind of catch us up on what you've been doing since the last time you were here, and then we're going to talk about the research that you were able to do for Esther's story.
Okay. Well, last year was a whirlwind for me. I signed to write 3 books, so I was really busy, and I took 4 business trips and 2 personal trips. So it was a lot of craziness. My mom had health issues, so we had to, she had to go ahead and move to live with my sister about 4 hours away from me. So that was an adjustment. I'm used to living like 5 miles from her my whole life.
Wow.
And but she's doing great. My sister takes good care of her, but it's just she's far away. So I don't get to just go over there, or just take her to the doctor or to lunch or whatever anymore. That's now her turn. So I'm just grateful that she can. And the business trips were cool. I had my very first book tour. My publicist, Karen Steele, took me to Pennsylvania in June, I think, and we went to like 3 bookstores, I think it was.
Oh, what fun.
Oh, yeah, it was. I met some really cool people, and it was really neat. She did all the driving. I just looked at all the landscape. I almost missed my flight because I picked the wrong time, but I got it changed at the last minute. And and we found out we're going to have another granddaughter next month.
Oh, wow. Well, how exciting is that?
Yeah. So all out west, of course, but
yeah.
We'll visit sometime this year and go out there.
So, kids, why do they have to move so far away?
I ask that a lot. I have no answers for you.
Aggravating. It's so aggravating. I hope this doesn't affect the recording. My computer just kind of went a little bit wonky. That was what that noise was.
Yeah, I heard that noise.
So hopefully, though, it's going to behave itself.
Somebody's dialing in. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Star of Persia, Esther's story, because it's such a fascinating book of the Bible anyway, because as most of us know, God's name is not even mentioned in the book, and yet it is all about God's will and his behind the scenes working through Esther and through her uncle. And I'm also, though, very interested in Xerxes and the I guess what you call the history of it outside of biblical history and what we know about Xerxes. So can you tell us some things that you found out about him, and then about how you worked that into Esther's story?
It was tough.
Yeah, I bet.
Most people think, oh, Esther has a book all to herself in scripture. That should be easy to write, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
right.
But we don't, when we actually get down and look at it, it only covers it covers a number of years, and yet it doesn't cover very much information.
Right.
We get a little bit about Vashti. We get the beauty contest that brought Esther to Xerxes, and then we hear all about the plot to annihilate the Jews and how Esther saved the day. But there's really no, besides Mordecai, did she have any more family? Is there, who were the other people, the other Jews in the area that she knew? What was it like living in the palace? Who was this King Xerxes? And he is a historical figure. Yeah. So I went and searched some of Herodotus, who is a Greek historian, some of his writings on Xerxes, but keep in mind he was Greek. Mm-hmm. And when you go through the history of Persia, Xerxes' father, Darius the first or second, I forget which one. Anyway, he had conquered most of the known world. And his last big war was to be with Greece, but he died before he could fulfill it. So Xerxes went to war to try to complete what his father couldn't finish. And there's other types of wars that are mentioned in history, not in scripture. But I didn't go into all of that. I didn't even go to take you to the Greek War but that's background for knowing that because they didn't win, the Greeks prevailed. When Herodotus wrote the history of Persia, you can bet, and historians, commentaries will agree, that he was a little biased.
A little bit.
Yeah. So we don't know how much to take, from his writings. But I did see that he wrote that Xerxes was married to a woman named Amestris, if I'm saying that right. And she had, like, Darius the First, or Darius the Second. Anyway, Darius, that was her firstborn. And then Artaxerxes was her next. And then she had a couple more kids. I don't bring all her kids out in the book, but Artaxerxes is in the Bible. And he actually succeeded Xerxes and was kind to the Jews. So because he is both in history and the Bible, you sit there and go, okay, his mother, though, according to history, was Amestris, but she's not in Esther's story. So who is she? And some people, depending who you look at, scholars will say she's Vashti or she's Esther. And I looked at the character of Vashti and Esther in scripture, who are not mentioned outside of scripture. And you go, but Amestris was this cruel person according to Herodotus. And so I'm thinking there's no way she was Vashti or Esther. And so I created Amestris's character, and she's a third wife in his many women. And because her sons are born, I would say in modern times, modern meaning less ancient than her era, you'd call her children born in the purple, possibly because they were born after he was king. I don't know if Vashti ever had a child. That's not recorded in scripture, but in my story, I explore that and make my own, fictional part of it. But anyway, Vashti was his favorite, according to scripture, but Amestris was also in there somewhere and probably felt she had the right to be queen if her sons were going to inherit the throne. So I tried to weave Herodotus' history in with scripture without taking out anything in scripture. The only thing I will say is at the end of Esther in the Bible, you get an anticlimactic part to the history of what happened with the whole Purim celebration. So I don't take everything from her book in scripture and put it in my novel, because it would make the story seem to not end right. So I just left that for you to go back and read it in scripture, because it's important to know, but it didn't need to be in the story.
Right. That's fascinating. So the book is coming out just within a couple days, so you should be able to get a copy. And then, just so you know, those of you who are watching this, we're going to give away Star of Persia as the March giveaway of the month book. So that's going to be really cool to be able to do that, so you can get a chance to get a copy. I am so fascinated by Amestris and Xerxes and all of this, and how you're able to pull these things that happen in history and put them together with the biblical accounts, which I they are history too. And it's just too bad that there doesn't seem to be any record of Vashti or Esther in I
don't really know why, because in the Jewish tradition, and they celebrate Purim to this day.
Absolutely.
So they, but of course they take the Old Testament as their scripture. So, but outside of the Bible, there are some things that just aren't recorded by other historians, and at least that I could find. There was more that I could have put in. A lot of cruelty on Amestris's part I felt wasn't necessary. Xerxes himself, I left some things out about him too that could have been true historically. He wasn't necessarily a nice guy.
No.
But I tried to weave in a story that would be appealing, because Esther could have at least come to care for him. you know, whether there was a love relationship there. Well, read the book and see if there's anything that romance that sparks. I always try to include it, but sometimes you just can't.
I know.
In this one, I try a little bit, but it's fascinating to look back on ancient Persian history and just try to imagine what she went through.
Yeah.
You know, she had to be like young when she was taken, because they were taking virgins, and I don't know how old they were when they married, but guessing maybe 15.
Right. So
and he couldn't have been young. He had to be a lot older. So it would have been, but that happened a lot in scripture.
Yeah. Well, I was intrigued too when you said that he didn't really want to disown Vashti, and but of course that's what happened. He was sort of pressured into it. But is that something that you sort of read into scripture or got from commentaries and things like that, that he how he felt about that?
About getting rid of
Vashti, about having to dethrone her.
Well, the scripture tells us, you know, what happened, but I kind of wove in the idea of he had, when it starts out the book, he's invited all these leaders from 127 provinces that he's in control of, right?
Big party.
Big party lasted a long time, and I'm like, well, why? And then I looked at the history of it, and I thought, well, maybe they were planning the war against Greece.
Right.
And it took a long time, and they, you know, were getting all their ducks in a row or whatever. And then, you know, at the end, he sent them all home and decided, oh, let's have one more week to celebrate with just the people of the city that he lived in, Susa.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he went. If he had not had that party, Vashti would still have been queen.
Yeah.
But because of that party, I don't know. I mean, I have my own conclusions of how it might have happened, but of course, I'm just fictionalizing the how.
Sure.
We know it happened. We just don't know
Exactly. We just don't know how. Well, next up, I understand you're working on Miriam's story.
how. I am.
Yeah, how's that going?
I'm in the third draft, and it's due in March, and I hope to finish the third draft in a week or so, and then I start reading it out loud to myself. I did have my critique partner read it, so, you know, I had a few things that helped me to know where I might strengthen something. I'm not sure I've really did as good a job as I could have, so one more read through at least will be helpful.
Yeah.
I usually will go 4 to 6 times I'll read a book, but this is a 500-page manuscript, so
Oh my gosh.
on my computer, you know, and it's like, I can't do it. I can't read this more than 4 times.
That's a long story. Will it be that long, you think, when it's...
Well, I don't know how many pages it'll actually come out to in print, but in a Word doc, you know,
yeah. Wow.
490 99 pages or something, and that includes the bio, the acknowledgments.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
It's not all the story. Yeah, you've got well over 450 pages.
That's an in-depth story. So how was it when we, you know, Miriam's another one that we don't really know a lot about, except I know I read that sometimes that you look at the men in a woman's life to kind of try to figure out who she was and how she interacted in her personality. Mm-hmm. So we know about Moses and we know about Aaron a little bit anyway. So.
Well, again, yeah, Miriam was really tough because she, like, take Deborah, for instance. When I wrote her book, there was like a poem and a little teeny piece of information in 2 chapters of the whole Bible. We didn't have a long, you know, lengthy Moses story, right? So, but at least it told us the name of her husband.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a jumping off point. But Miriam, we are not told if she's married, if she's had children, nothing. So I had to go and look at, well, would women of her day have been single? And my answer would be probably not.
Right.
You know, it was just not in the culture for a woman to remain single. So I had to find her a husband, which was a little tough. And I had to decide if she had kids. And I wove in some characters that could have been, but they were real people in scripture that don't have a mother named, but like father, son. And I just decided, okay, Miriam could have been, but this is totally my speculation. There's no record of her husband or children. So Moses was the main person I had to understand. And you will have points of view from Miriam, Moses, and Zipporah a little.
Wow.
Because there's a point there, he's away for 40 years, and we have to know why that God sent him back. And I had to create that understanding. So that's kind of why it's longer. Also, let's see. I think there might have been another point of view from maybe Aaron's wife. I did not have enough coffee to remember.
That's okay. That's fine.
But yeah, she's challenging. But I think I finally have come up with a way to make it work. I think the hardest part for me is the timing, because the timeline, you're jumping 40 years at a time or 10 years at a time. All my books end up being that way because there's this big gap between what happened here and what happened here. And you can't fill in every detail of 40 years. So I do time jumps, and I'll put 40 years later or 10 years later or whatever years later. And just hope that it is cohesive.
Right.
Telling. So
yeah, that can be hard to do too. Wow.
Yeah, and as I go, I try to make a timeline for my editor because she will ask for one, and I mess it up somehow, and she tries to keep it straight. So
I know I have such timeline issues, and it's like I even make like days. This is the day, and I'll still get back. I think this is wrong. I think you got the wrong day. How can I mess this up?
I know.
You've also written another nonfiction book, or in the process, or?
It's in-house. It's called She Walked Before Us. It's about 12 women in the Bible, and it's in the same contract as When Life Doesn't Match Your Dreams, but it's in the same storytelling style, but it's not really the same kind of book. So it's not being like a sequel. It's not being built as a sequel. And the cover, I'll probably get to reveal the cover in probably after Star of Persia comes out. I don't want to, they'll have it in their catalogs in February, but I don't know. I might post it after that beforehand, but I kind of am trying to figure out, okay,
how to do all that.
Not till September, but once it's in the catalog, anyone with the catalog will be able to see it. So yeah, but they did a good job. I think it's a nice cover. It'll be fun too, but that's a ways away. I start edits on it though in March. Everything's happening in March.
Everything's in March.
Miriam's due, and I start edits, and it's like, I'm just like trying not to think about it. This is
it's the writer's life though, isn't it? It's always juggling at least 2, if not 3 or 4 projects at the same time. So.
Yeah, I know. And if anyone had told me that at the beginning, I would not have believed it. So.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's been so fun to have you back again and to talk about Esther's story. I think she is one of the most fascinating women in the Bible, and I know that you put off writing about her for a long time. I'm glad that she finally has a Jill Eileen Smith story of her.
Yeah, I really didn't think I could do any better than anyone who'd gone before me. Not that it is better, but I couldn't do different. I wanted it to be different, because if it's the same as what the other authors already written, why bother? It needs to be its own unique story. And yes, everybody could write about the same person and have their own unique slant because their voice is different, but I just didn't want even the way I told it to be the same.
I understand that. So which direction do you go? Do you read all the other novels that have come before, or do you stay away from them?
Stay away from them. Although with Esther, I had already read a number of books on her years ago.
Right.
That was not a book I was ever going to do, but then I wasn't going to do Miriam either, but here we are.
Excuse me. So who's after Miriam? Do you know?
Yeah, I have a 3-book contract that will be only one a year, thankfully, starting next. The first one I'm supposed to be researching now. It's on Joseph.
Yes.
You really get into Joseph's life and the life, especially of Judah, the brother that sold him, or it was his idea to sell him to slavery. But after that, there's 2 more women, but it says to be determined. So I don't know who I'm writing about. I can ask my Facebook followers, who do you want to read about? Exactly. I haven't already done, but unfortunately, some of the characters are already in other books. Mm-hmm. And they're such a side character, but they have a point of view that I can't give them another whole book by themselves. So
yeah,
we're at a point where, like, do I cross to the New Testament? Or are there still some in the Old that I can maybe create a fictional character, or maybe some? I mean, I haven't done Eve. I haven't done Noah's wife. I haven't done a few others. So, I mean, there are still people there that are possibilities, but I don't know yet. I really don't.
Interesting. It'll be exciting to see in the next couple of years what you come up with. I'm really interested in Joseph because I just finished, like doing the chronological reading. So I've just finished all of Genesis, and I've been thinking about Judah. So I'm glad that you're going to really, shine a spotlight on him because, not only was he the one that said, let's not kill him, let's, sell him, but he's the one that said to his dad, I'll take all responsibility for Benjamin, mm-hmm. And of course Judah ends up having a not so shining moment in his life as well later.
And he was a definite prodigal child that turned to become a man that was pretty dedicated to his family.
Yeah, he really is just a very multi-dimensional character. And one thing I read, I've read Genesis lots of times, but one thing that popped out at me this time was that he moved away for a while, it seems like, which I thought, wonder why he did that and what brought him back. So
well, I have my thesis.
You've already thought about this.
Oh yeah. I've wanted to write this story for a long time, and I feel like he moved away shortly after Joseph was sold. And my opinion, mm-hmm. I'll give it without even writing the book, is that he couldn't face his father and the devastated dad who thought his child had been killed, and he knew it was his fault, and he probably couldn't handle his guilt, so he left. I mean, and then he went through thinking he could, live this life among the Canaanites and away from the covenant and all that, and realized that he couldn't. Finally came back. I don't know what brought him back, unless it was Tamar.
Yeah.
It could have been that.
That's exciting. Well, we could talk on and on and on about that, but we probably better wrap it up. I'm so glad that you joined me today, and I've asked you this before, and honestly don't remember what you said, so it doesn't matter if you answer the same thing or not. Okay. When you're all done with the book, what do you do to unwind? I should have gone back and re-listened to your first interview.
This year I haven't really had a chance to unwind.
No unwinding.
Because it was one to the next. I was in the middle last year of writing Miriam. I just started it when I suddenly realized, oh no, the nonfiction's due in August and I haven't even started it. So I stopped Miriam, started the nonfiction, finished it, turned it in, and then finally got back to Miriam. But then I realized, wait, because I signed a contract with Guideposts to do a shorter novel on Samson's mother.
Oh.
And that one won't be in stores, but if you're in their book club, you'll be able to. There's doing an Ordinary Women of the Bible series.
Right.
That isn't due till May, but it had to be first drafted. I had to get that done before the end of the year, or I wouldn't have been able to, and Miriam too, I had to have it all first drafted by the end of last year, and I did. So now it's a matter of fine-tuning both of those and researching Joseph. By June, I figure I can relax, although we want to go see our granddaughter, so that'll be fun. Travel's not always easy, but it does give you a different viewpoint.
Holding a newborn, that is a great way to unwind.
Yeah, it can be, definitely. Getting on the floor and playing Legos with your granddaughter is also fun because we have
Yes,
two. So.
yeah, I like that answer. That's a great way to unwind. Well, Jill, thank you so much. And again, everybody, thank you for watching. We really appreciate that. And be on the lookout for the giveaway for Star of Persia. It's going to be our March 2020 giveaway of the month for anyone who's watching this after that. That's when it happened. So thanks so much, Jill, and thanks everybody. Join us next time on Novelists Unwind. Bye-bye.